Trust in the slow work of God. This doesn't quite seem to be our strength as humanity. We do so often lean into the impatience of being on the way. Yet there is something hidden in this season of waiting, this time of living and walking in the meantime, this invitation to encounter God as our shepherd. A shepherd who declares, "We are beloved." Even when circumstances suggest that we are forgotten. We have a shepherd who walks with us through valleys, who walks with us as we seek the healing of quiet streams, who walks with us as we seek the impossibility of green pastures. A shepherd who seeks us out, who searches for us, who relentlessly looks for us when we feel exceptionally lost. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. All true, we might suggest, for others, but not for me, not for us, not for this time. Sometimes these poetic promises of God as our shepherd found in Psalm 23, the refreshing of our soul, the seeking us out, the bringing us home, can feel as though they are written for others. A dismissive declaration written by those who have been found, written for those who no longer want, those who have forgotten the challenge of lack and the discomfort of lostness. And I wonder if part of the dissonance between what we experience and what we expect is simply because of what we imagine our encounter with God to be like, what we envision God seeking us out to look like. Perhaps what we envision is something miraculous, something spectacular, something obvious and evident, something worthy of a testimony. Instead, on so many occasions, we find ourselves like Elijah in 1 Kings, where lack and need and want are all that he can see and are all that he can experience. Elijah has run into the desert feeling devastated and alone. Days earlier, he was standing boldly on top of a mountain, calling down fire from heaven, showing God off to the prophets of Baal. But days later, he is curled up under a tree in the wilderness, insistent that God has left him, insistent that God doesn't care, that God won't show up. The God who sent fire from heaven in this voluminous display of grandeur is the same one that Elijah can't seem to trust when his own heart is broken, when his own future is uncertain, when he finds himself wounded and lost. There in the wilderness, God sends an angel to offer him food and water and rest. Yet Elijah is still insistent that God has not sought him out, that God is not on the move to find him, to meet him, and to connect with him in his place of need, his lack and his hurt. And so 40 days later, after finding his way to the mountain of God, he hears a voice ask him, "Why are you here?" Elijah has been waiting for God to finally pay attention to his complaint. And so he is ready and he tells God everything. He says, "I have been faithful. I have fought on your behalf. I have battled evil. I have stood up for righteousness. And you have left me vulnerable, exposed, and in danger." And God doesn't really respond to his complaint. Instead, he announces with great fanfare, "I am here even when and where it is dark." And so a wind blows, the earth shakes, fire rages, but Elijah doesn't encounter God in any of the noise. Instead, he will recognize God as his shepherd, the one who says, "You shall not want," in the stillness, when the gentle, small, and familiar voice of God speaks, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" The complaint remains. "God, you have left me. And God responds as a shepherd with a rod and a staff, gently correcting his sheep to come away from the rocky edges and the unsafe riverbanks. And he says, go back the way that you came. And it will be in the going back that you will see that you are not alone, that you are not abandoned, that the mission is not a useless one. I am here. I have sought you out, and you are found. You shall not want. I kind of empathize with Elijah because time after time I have been exactly where he is. I have been him. Consumed by the darkness of waiting and the hopelessness found in that which is uncertain. The external threat seeming to disempower my deep understanding that the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Because in that moment, I am so desperately in need of a way out. I'm so desperately in need of a little bit of light, of a smattering of hope. But I, like Elijah, forget that the whisper of the psalmist is not one that begins with a table prepared before my enemies, or of oil anointing flowing down my head, or the insistent knowing of God's goodness and mercy following me all the days of my life. Instead, the words of the psalmist, this soothing reminder that I shall not want, is simply a reflection of who the shepherd is, rather than what I experience, rather than what I feel or see as my relentless and at times utterly unmet need. I shall not want is because even in my own lostness, even in my own woundedness, even in my own spaces of fear or despair, the shepherd still declares, you are beloved. The shepherd still stands with me. The shepherd still longs for me to know that I am sought after and I am found. And so, alone and as contradictory as it may seem, the Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. Perhaps this is described somehow like this. There's a story told of a man walking and he falls into the hole. The hole is deep and it's hard to get out of. And a doctor passes by and the guy shouts out, "Hey, can you help me out?" The doctor writes a prescription, throws it in the hole, and moves on. Then a priest comes by and the guy shouts out, "Father, I'm here, help me." The priest writes out a prayer, puts it in the hole, and moves on. Then a friend walks by. He says, "Hey, Joe, it's me. Can you help me out?" And the friend jumps in the hole. And our guy says, "Are you stupid? Now we're both stuck down here." And the friend says this. He says, "Yeah, but I've been down here before. And I know the way out." K.J. Ramsey notes that when we descend into the dark regions of fear and despair, we are descending to a place that Christ has already gone. He comes all the way down to the bottom with us because he has already been down there and he knows how to rise. A God who jumps in when we are at our best and at our worst to help us rise despite the child that's struggling, the aging parent whose health is failing, the marriage that is fragile, the relationships that are broken, the dreams unfulfilled, the debt unmanaged, the hope lost, the peace fading, the love absent, the joy unrecognizable, yet still he jumps in with us. It is for those of us who find ourselves in the waiting that I invite you to sit with the words of the psalmist. To sit with them for just a moment, not as a means to an end, but as a path that Christ walks with you as the shepherd. And so I invite you to be fully present as the shepherd guides you in the rocky spaces and is leading you to green meadows. As he's with you in those parched and messy places, guiding you to still waters. And those exhausted and lost spaces leading you to be renewed. In the dark spaces and valleys, walking with you, lifting, carrying you. In the dangerous spaces, longing to protect you, rushing in to offer unspeakable comfort in the midst of unspeakable loss. The shepherd reminding you of your deep worth and worthiness, regardless of what those around you declare. Showing you the blessings, the gifts, the marks of light that are both in you and that surround you. and reminding you with that still small voice, the same voice Elijah heard all those years ago, that even when it's dark, when the pit is deep, when it feels you are abandoned, his goodness and love follow you, pursue you, and seek you out, both when you are lost and when you come to realize that you are and always have been found. I'll ask the worship team to come up. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. Words that are true not because of us, but because of who the shepherd is. The Lord is my shepherd. The Lord is your shepherd. The Lord is our shepherd, and we are beloved. He is with us. We shall not